wait for some people to show up, but all right, we got one person watching now. So we're just going to be forging a hammer this time around. So yeah, I have my fire going. I have my steel in fire right now. So luckily, we actually got some more light, but we have nobody watching yet. But we're just going to be forging. All right, we got one person watching right now, so I am just waiting for my steel to heat up. We have it in the fire, and this will be interesting because I haven't forged a hammer alone before, or with like of this size. I've forged on like little pieces like this size of a hammer. I've forged, yeah, these size of hammers alone before, and they're not too big of a deal because there's not much mass here, so it's not flying around that much. Thank you, Darren, for showing up. Really appreciate it. We have two people watching now, but this will be interesting because I'm now forging a hammer like this size, which is a lot more mass here and a lot more flying around, a lot harder to keep controlled. But we will figure this out. I have a piece of metal in the fire about this big. Um, let me grab my tape measure so I can actually tell you the true size of it. I think it's about 2 inch, but I'll tell you for sure. Just about inch and 1.75, so inch and 3/4 about. I just use my little anvil ruler. Forged this, well, about when I got started, and it's nice because, as you can see, kind of has a little spring shape, and so it's just slip on. Crispy. I hope not to use the hammer I forge on people, but we'll see where we get to. But so this is the last hammer I forged. This is kind of a redemption. I did this with my dad, but I'm gonna be trying to figure out how I can do this on myself, forging this by myself. But my problem with this one is you can see the sides are quite thin. I isolated the two heads a little bit more than I should have. As you can see, maybe on this one, see all the weld on there? That is from this one. That's from it breaking off. So I welded back on. The hammer's been working very well after that, but I'd like to redeem myself because this hammer, it's still really good. I love it. It feels really good in the hand, but it lost a little bit of its feel after I broke it. So, redemption round. So that's what we'll be doing tonight. Steps I'm going to be going through to make this is probably not going to be all done in one stream, but the steps that I'm going to be doing to forge this will be first coming down and flattening the top, so keeping this as my anvil, coming down and flattening it like that, so that'll kind of flatten and make two working surfaces that'll sit flatly on the anvil, which will make it a little bit easier to handle, and it'll give us some reference points. And then I've already done that at an earlier time, when I was just needing to hammer some steel because I was angry, and so that's already been done. Now what I'll be doing is, again, my hand being the anvil face, I'll be coming down and hammering it around, getting it to basically upsetting the piece, which upsetting is where you basically force the metal upon itself to thicken it, but thus decreasing the length of the original stock. So that's the second step I'll be doing, and then I'll isolate my heads a little bit with some fullers, and then we'll punch the hole for the eye, then finish isolating the heads, and then we'll stick the drift through the punched eye to then give it its finished shape, clean it up, throw a handle on it. Well, and I also have to heat treat it, which that'll definitely not be done tonight. We'll probably get at most to isolating the main heads before we punch the hole. So my steel is getting warmer as we continue talking. For all this forging, actually, I'll be using the biggest tongs I own, which are these big jawed V-Jaw tongs, and they're so big that they don't even meet up in the build. So, but they do hold the metal quite well when you have it out on the edge. I do need to get some bigger tongs for doing stuff like this, because I have some 2 3/4 and some 3-inch stock that I can't really use these to work on because they're really big, or the stock is really big, not the tongs. I also have a pair of hammer making tongs. These are from Blacksmith Depot. The other tongs were from Centaur Forge, and these are nice because you can let up on them, and you just change the angle that you hold it at, and you can flip it around. And they work better when you have your reference point flat sides put on it. But my steel is still not completely warmed up. But today, well, that was it. But so today I actually cleaned up the forge. So, and I added a new light, if we can. It's right there. Light up. Then we have the other light with the nice Christmas lights running beneath it. But as you can see, the workbench is cleaned off. The other table back there is mostly cleaned off. It just has current projects that I'm working on it, or that me and my dad are working on. And then we have the forge. Just got it all cleaned up. I had a catastrophe when I was trying to quench the cleaver that I just finished, where I dropped it in my 3-foot tall oil tank and then lost my magnet at the bottom. So yeah, that sucked. Dumped all my oil on the ground. Dumped my, I bought canola oil because it works better than motor oil for quenching, like to do good hardening quenching, and spilled that all over the ground. That was a really catastrophe, but I got it mostly cleaned up, and all the oil, all the dirt that was contaminated, I got put in a bucket, or actually half of a barrel. So that, but now I actually had some extra used motor oil lying around, but it actually turned out to be bar oil for a chainsaw, or stuff that was modified to be bar oil for a chainsaw. And the stuff actually works pretty well for quenching knives, so I'll just be using that until I run out of it, or I burn it all off, or I spill it again, which I don't really want to do, is spill it again. But it's looking like my steel is pretty hot now, so let's get hammering. So as you can see how the top here is wider than the bottom is here. So that's what I'm working on, is just getting that top wider so there's more surface area for the hammer. And I almost forgot, these are actually the tongs that I have been using. These are pickup tongs. These are Centaur Forge tongs. I really like the Centaur Forge. These are actually one of my dad's purchases. I bought most of the Blacksmith Depot tongs, and my grandparents bought some for me. But honestly, the Centaur Forge are a lot higher quality. Also, another thing, reason you punch the eye of the hammer out, if anyone's wondering, versus like drilling it out, is you keep a lot more material when you punch it out hot than drilling it, because you're removing basically all that material, while when you punch it, the only material removed is a little slug. I actually have some saved when we have punched some hammers, so I'll grab one to show you. These are the little slugs that come out from when you're punching a hammer. With the hammer punch we have, which is this one. It's seen a hard life, but it works well. And these are the little slugs that come out. Versus drilling a hole, say if I were to drill a 1/2-inch hole, that's basically removing a 1/2-inch diameter hole all the way through 1 3/4 of steel removed. Which, I'm sorry, I'm not going to do the math of pi times the radius times the length of the cylinder that'd be removed. But that's a lot more steel removed than just one of these little slugs. And you don't want to remove that steel because you want that there to keep the hammer strong. Because the more material you have, the more material there is to keep the strength and to hold the hammer as it's working. So more material, of course, equals more strength. Steel's hot now. Alright, so Crispy, what I use to stream is this, as you can see up here in this corner right here, StreamYard. So it is StreamYard.com is what I use to stream because I don't have enough subscribers to go live off of my mobile device, off of the YouTube app. So I use this StreamYard app because there's this other app called Streamlabs. It is always messing everything up when I try to do a live stream. So this is also the same program that CP, the Tool Addict, uses for his live streams. So that is, the program that I use. Steel's still heating up a little bit. The problem is, like I discussed in my last live stream, which was Fortune Cleaver, is that the anvil, it warms up as you're working on it. Number one, for all the energy you're putting from your body into the anvil. So Crispy, I used YouTube University, which is just YouTube. I've learned a lot from YouTube. I also learned a lot from a Boy Scout camp. They had a blacksmith shop and a blacksmith program at a Boy Scout camp that I went to, and I fell in love with it there. My dad fell in love with blacksmithing at a Boy Scout camp when he was younger, when he was still, able to be a scout, and so he actually fell in love with it at a blacksmith shop at Philmont Scout Ranch, which sadly is being sold off because just people making dumb decisions. And then I learned blacksmithing at a camp called Camp Fleischman, and I just fell in love with it there. My dad fell in love with it, so we built this blacksmith shop. We found this anvil, which you can't really see that well, but we found this anvil out on a drag. This ranch was using it as a weight on their drag. Looks like a big sheet of almost like two ginormous of chainmail that they just pull across the field, and they're using that for weight to keep the drag on the field. So we're like, well, we're going to make that disappear and replace it with something else with equal weight, but isn't going to be just thrown away. So that's where we got our anvil. It's actually off of the one that drags off the ranch that I work at during the summer. And we, right next to me here, I have this post vise. Another post vise there. We bought these off of a ranch that had all that just lying in one of their sheds for real cheap. Got the forge online. I found another cool forge at one of the ranches that had a blacksmith shop, and just kind of acquired of all this stuff. And then also a lot of the techniques I've learned off of YouTube. I mean, honestly, one of my favorite blacksmithing channels would be Alex Steele. I mean, I know that he does it more for the money than for actually doing it, but he does have a lot of educational stuff in his older videos. So that's where I've learned all of this stuff. Steel's hot, so got a hammer. There we go. Now, if you look at that now, you can really see that the upsetting and the flaring on both of those ends. That's gonna work real well. I might not even try to isolate the sides, but we'll see. Thank you, everyone who's in the stream. Charging on Forge, thank you so much for joining in. Snap-on tools are the GOAT when it comes to challenges. Are the hardest to acquire because of price. My say on that. I mean, what are the things that I just love about blacksmithing so much? It's just, I mean, the fact that blacksmithing really is the base of all society. Because it started out not necessarily just with iron. I mean, blacksmithing technically comes from, the name is derived from black, which is the black material, which is iron. But blacksmiths were derived, from cavemen using rocks to bash on some piece of metal, say like copper that they found. And just the fact of it escalating, where then they took that bronze and were able to fashion it into a tool to better work bronze, to an anvil, to then working with, copper, to then working with mixing it with other materials to then make bronze, and then using that bronze to then work the better materials that they've found into iron. Then with the tools that they made from iron to build, like, just everything that we've come to today. And it's really just the base of everything that's been built, has been built with the blacksmithing, like, ability and with the skill that is derived from it. That's another thing that I love about blacksmithing is this tool. I didn't forge it necessarily, but someone else forged it. And then I can forge a tool out of another tool. And I can make all my own tools from basically nothing. If I didn't have anything at all, I could go out and find some iron or some iron ore and mine it, collect it enough, build a fire hot enough to make it into a bloom, build another fire to refine it, and then take that iron that you've refined out of that bloom into one piece, or depending on how much you, of course, get, but into a refined piece, and then make that into a tool, and then use that tool to better do your next phase, and just keep on building. And just that's what about blacksmithing I love so much, or about, I guess, the history of it is what I love so much. Steel's hot. It's begging me to hammer on it. Got 3 people. Thank you, Darren Robinson. I really appreciate that. I was thinking as a forging, I did not mention where I derived this steel from. This steel is actually off of a drive shaft, off of a tractor, coming from the PTO, off of a tractor, going to a big baler, so a 1 ton or 1,000 pound bale making baler. And what I really like about this steel for making hammers is it can be screwed up. You have to oil quench it, which is the one part that you can screw up. When I did quench these in water, I did screw it up because it's too hard for quenching in water. But since it is supposed to be a drive shaft, it's supposed to be very ductile and very, like, it's just supposed to hold itself together very well. So that works perfectly because I'm putting a lot of stress under it. It's meant to have hundreds of foot-pounds of torque twisted through it, which means the material properties of this steel means that it's very ductile and very strong. So because it's supposed to do that, it works perfect for making a hammer because it's not too hard that it won't dent my anvil actually. So I'm not denting my anvil as I'm using the hammer, say if I miss a strike or something. It's hard enough to dent mild steel, not hard enough to dent my hardened top on my anvil. And because of that, also adds to the strength. And it comes, I mean, look at that. It's perfect size for forging a 2-3 pound hammer out of. I think this is about 3 pounds, but it gets about 2.8, 2.7, even out to 2.6 if I keep it in the fire too long. Pounds once I'm done forging it, just because of material loss. But I mean, it does work really well. Metal's hot again. Never thought of. Actually, that I haven't necessarily thought about doing that, but it actually gives me ideas of. I mean, that'd be really cool. I am enrolled in my school's engineering program, which is quite fun because of all this COVID crud. It has made the learning slow down a lot. I mean, right now, we just finished our vector unit, which is only our second unit in, and we're already past our first quarter in school. I'm sorry, our third unit in, but we're just past our first quarter in. We're going really, really slow, so, but in the free time, that'd be definitely fun to design my own ratchet. I mean, I've access through school to all the Autodesk Inventor and Autodesk. What are the other ones called? But I just like Inventor because how it all works. It makes sense most to me, and that's why I only remember that one. Thank you, Princess Jamie, for joining in. Yeah, we're just working on forging a hammer in here. Speaking of that, I need to get my steel because since it's upset, I'm going to start punching the hole in it because I'm actually going to try to skip upsetting it. We're going to see how this works because I think this hammer will look really cool how it is currently. So Yeah, definitely. To yeah, there's snap-on replacement kit for the gears. But what my problem is, since I upset it, remember these sides are flared out now. When I'm going to try to punch a hole through, I want to keep those nice flared edges. And when I try to punch it, it's going to flatten those edges and not make it look how I want. So I'm going to grab either a piece of lead spring, I think I have a piece just in mind, or some different stock to be just hold it up above those flared ends to keep it to shape. Here we go. This is actually the piece that I forged the cleaver from. Gotta grab my anvil ruler. And I'm grabbing this small, if you can see that right there. I have a little square punch, and I'm just going to use that to mark where I will start the hole with the actual hammer I made. Because I want to line it up perfectly on both sides, because that's how I've screwed up hammers before, is I'm either off to one side or the other, or I'm a little too far forward or back, where when I start going from both sides and they don't meet up right, that makes the the hole for the eye off center. He just screws everything up. So I'm going to do it as correctly as I can. So there you go. There's the one starter. There's the second starter. So I'm gonna throw this back on the fire because you can tell it's really not that hot. Yeah, Lead Spray makes good knives. Like Darren just said in the chat, I did just forge a cleaver. I'm happy with how it came out. But I've got more Lead Spray that I know what to do with, which is, I mean, on the better side, it's better than me trying to find Lead Spray, but and I'm wearing my big gloves because I'm working really close to this hot steel, and it is very easy to get a blister the size of Kansas.
Let's see if this accidentally ends. All right. There we go.
All right, we're lined up.
There we go.
Down to. All right. We're all lined up. Let's be safe. And I just added that on the anvil. You can see that little setup there. That'll help hold that piece of leaf spring that's keeping that hammer off the anvil face a little better. Well, this little deal here that I was hoping to hold down the leaf spring not quite work out. So I did that idea. And I'm moving you guys a little closer, so does that look all right? Five people now watching. Thank you, everyone that is watching this stream. It means a lot to me. We are just waiting right now for the steel to heat up a little bit more. We're really close. And this is not working. Because for some reason, alright, we have some questions. Versus Jamie, I have actually not tackled Damascus steel yet. Number one, because I haven't found much good steel to. I'm mainly a scrapyard steel finder. I don't buy much steel. I can count the amount of pieces I've bought of actual steel on my two hands, which that'd be 8 pieces I've bought of steel. The rest I just find junkyard to forge. Larry Brookstrom, thanks so much for joining the live stream. That's why I don't do much Damascus, and also I've not perfected my forge welding skills, so that's another reason. But I am throwing out this idea because this keeps on trying to kill me. Six people watching. That is right below the most. I'm gonna I'm gonna use this piece here as my new piece. It's a piece of mild steel, so it won't be as springy. And I'm gonna hammer down the sides just to add a little chamfer so it rolls instead of bouncing. see how well this works. It's probably not going to work very well, but it's at least a try. Oh, we got more hooks. I mean, it was staying better on the anvil, so I got more hits on that piece than the other times. What's nice with having another person forging with me is one person could be holding the piece on the anvil or on this work platen, and one person can then be one person holding your workpiece and your punch, and then you have one person swinging either the 10-pound or the 16-pound hammer. That's right. 16-pound hammer. Makes the anvil look small almost. Even with safety glasses on, you duck when that thing hits punch or whatever you're working on. Heavy duty C-clamp, I mean, it possibly could. What I really need is a Hold'em, which is basically an L-shaped hook that basically is similar diameter, about 16th to an eighth of an inch smaller diameter than the hardy hole on the anvil, and you bend it at not 90, but just a little bit more acute than a 90, and then when you hammer that in, it wedges itself on the anvil and then holds your workpiece down. I just haven't taken the time to make one, so that is my bad. I mean, I could probably throw a piece in and start working on that, but I don't feel like doing that right now. But I might. Then we can have double the amount of forging going on. I just found this piece of rebar. We're going to make that. Forged to fire, down the road, this is purely a hobby for me, and I like to make knives when I need like a specialty knife for something like a cleaver. When you look for cleavers online, you can either find some super rusted one at an antique store for like $20 that, you know, really is rusted out and is not in the shape that it once was, or you look at them online and they're way too expensive, or more expensive than it is just to forge one with the equipment already at my disposal. So that's say why I forge the cleavers, because we've been butchering a lot of our animals, like our goats. We raise goats for meat. We raise sheep for meat. When we go out hunting, say for like a deer, the cleaver comes in handy for knocking off all the ribs off the spine, breaking the spine apart, so then you can throw it all in a pot and make some bone broth. And see, that's why I forged a cleaver, or like hunting knife, just because you can't find a hunting knife that fits the specifications that I want. So then basically I make it how I would like it to handle. Honestly, I prefer forging tools a lot more than I prefer forging knives, but it's not really crossed my mind to apply for Forged to Fire. Is my end result of my very long explanation. Ben Toombs, thank you so much for joining in. We're just working on forging a hammer. Easy as that. think if I shut off one of the lights, it'll make it a little better for the video quality. Bigger hammer than the ball peen. Alright, you need a custom breaker bar. 56 inch. Think we can do that. Ben Toombs, you need a bigger hammer? Okay. Will that do? Let's see. Good night, Princess Jamie. Thanks so much for joining. Ay, ay, ay. All right. Breaking out the hot cut Hardy. Done. So as you can see, it has more of that acute angle. So now it is impossible to remove unless you knock it out, but I'll probably add some more angle on there. Once it get a little bit more heat on it. Thank you so much, Darren. I really appreciate you hanging out. Need to look at what time it is. And I'm probably going to hang this up pretty soon as well. We'll probably get another heat in. Alright, well, probably going to do 1 or 2 more heats, and I'm going to hang this up. All I have to do left on my hold fast is just quench it in some water. I mean, rebar's basically mild steel. I mean, I think it's like not much higher of a step above mild steel, so it toughens a little bit more, so it'll make it harder to bend after quenching, but that's about all it'll do. But that's why I'm going to quench it, just add that much more resistance to bending when I really hammer down on it. But the good thing is it's not too hard, so it will have a little bit of a spring effect to it. Could have made it out of lead spring, but I don't have any lead spring cut the size that'll fit in the hardy hole, so. Looks like my hammerhead is resized again. When it starts bouncing off, that's when I know it's too cold. So. Oh, I almost saved it. And there goes my punch. I think we're getting too cold again already, but yeah. That now is where we start getting hurt. So I'm getting a little tired. So I think I'm going to do one more hammer and I'm going to call this tonight. There we go. Finished. Hold fast. Perfect. works stellar. A little bit of spring on it, but it works. So, well, looks like I quenched it too hard actually. Broke it right off. So, there goes my whole fast. Don't quench rebar, I guess. That is my biggest problem, is I quench everything in water and end up breaking it. Alright, let's finish our last hammering. Well, feels like a pretty successful stream up to some people tonight. Not quite a bit of progress done on a hammerhead. So, thank you for watching. Drop on in on the next stream. And I'll see you then.